The Ole Miss Rebels have broken fall camp. There are a lot of questions about the offense and the defense. We're going to break it down here on the Portal Podcast and a crossover with Locked On Ole Miss.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into a crossover of Locked On the Portal with Locked On Ole Miss. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Locked On the Portal podcast your first listen, along with Locked On Ole Miss. We're going to be discussing the Rebels as fall camp is finally here, and it's finally time to talk football. Everything from Austin Simmons to Suntarine Perkins, the running back room, any possible new names to know, injuries, a little bit of everything, just in all-encompassing with Ole Miss football. To help me get everything taken care of and get all the best information, Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss. Stephen, how are you today?
I am doing quite well. I'm looking over the top 100 list that they did of ranking the top college football players according to Locked On, and I have no idea how Suntarine Perkins is number 26. I can't get over that. Whenever you have people with half the sack numbers of what he had ranked as high as number 3 in the country in the SEC, something's not right. The SEC's returning sack leader, that's a little bit of disrespect.
I'm not surprised, but it is what it is. College football fans probably don't know as much about a guy at Ole Miss as they do at another program, so it is what it is. We can talk about that in a little bit because he's my pick to be the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I don't know if he'll win it because he plays at Ole Miss, but he'll have a chance because I think they'll turn him loose in a multitude of ways. So we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about the defensive side of the ball. But first off, just Ole Miss fall camp predictions. Any breakout players, Stephen? Somebody that maybe an Ole Miss fan might know something about, but that player is going to get bigger role because of an injury, because they've started to play well over the summer. Anything like that, players that you think might stand out a little bit in fall camp?
Well, after one practice of media access, we are clear to be an expert on all things Ole Miss. But with the injury to Luke Hasz, it's going to be interesting to see how Ole Miss replaces that production at the tight end position. You have a Trace Bruckler from New Mexico, and you have Daquan Wright, who is the presumptive starter at Ole Miss. But in the first practice, the one thing that was clear was Caleb Odom was taking snaps at the tight end position. And for those who don't know, Caleb Odom was a 5-star coming out of high school, went to Alabama. He kind of wanted to play wide receiver. He got to Ole Miss in the spring. He wanted to play wide receiver, but he's the type of player, if he embraces that tight end position and what it can be, he could make so much money at the next level.
He is a very, very unique football player because of his length, his ability to change directions. He was I'm going to guess 215 pounds when I got to see him live at a 7-on-7 tournament, and he was thin. This is a kid that can add 25, 30 pounds, no problem, and be that really unique hybrid guy as an H-back and slot receiver, like a big power slot. Not many linebackers are going to have fun with that, Stephen. Not many safeties either, to be really honest with you.
Yeah, and when you look at Ole Miss's offense, we're probably going to talk about all of that, but Joe Judge taking a massive role at quarterbacks and handling that kind of lets you know that the offense is getting ready to change. Now, the tempo is not going to change. The nuts and bolts of the offense is not going to change, but it's kind of like 2022, Ole Miss ran the ball 70% of the time. In 2024, they threw the ball 60% of the time. This is going to be an interesting offense, a lot more pro style, in my opinion. They're going to set it up around Austin Simmons and those wide receivers and tight ends, and having somebody like Caleb Odom on the field. If he becomes that daily mismatch, this is advantage Austin Simmons and the Ole Miss offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, they could be pretty good because they have so many different weapons they can use. Some of them, like we're talking about right now, people don't know as much about, and that includes the other teams. From game to game, I have a lot of faith in Lane Kiffin using somebody, again, I don't know which one you want to go with. They have so many different guys that, Caden Wee or somebody like that. They might put him out wide in one game, might put him in the slot in another. They might use the tight end in the slot in one game. They might use Kewan Lacey in the slot just, to run reverse. They're going to come up with stuff with so many skill guys. I'm not real worried about the skill players. My bigger question for you, do you think the offensive line will be as good or better than it was last year as we go through fall camp? What is your expectation to hear there?
You like to think it would be, but like I said, they're in shorts and shirts at the moment. So the physicality hasn't necessarily gotten to where it needs to be in fall camp. So we won't know for another week or two if that physicality is there. The people that kind of separate themselves, everything I'm hearing is they expect it to be good. They like this group and they're more consistent than they were a year ago. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything until the pads start popping, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Running the football, I think, is the biggest deal. This is a rather deep room in terms of talent because you got Diggs back, you got Kewan Lacey that's transferred in. Shakai Mills-Knight is a running back that I thought was a really big-time player. Played, I believe, at the Baylor School in Chattanooga, but they just have so many unique pieces, and I don't know which one, before anybody asks, I have no idea which one it's going to be because Lane will play the hot hand, and he is a matchup guy. He's an NFL mind. There might be a running back go for 120 yards, and the next week he only gets 5 carries because his skill set doesn't feature all the traits they want for the team they're going against, and he might just be a specialist in that game. They've got enough players they can do that. Like, Ole Miss doesn't normally have this many guys in the backfield. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, and you hear things going into camp. They really like Kewan Lacey, like really, really like it. But he isn't the thumper. Ole Miss has been in a need for a thumper since Quinshon Judkins left to go to Ohio State. Whether it's going to be Damian Taylor, the transfer from Troy that went over 1,000 yards a year ago, or Logan Diggs, they need that person on short yardage because the difference between a good team and an elite team is it's 4th and 2. Everybody in the whole world knows you're going to hand it off to the tailback, and it just doesn't matter.
That is a big deal. You look at the teams that win big, they can usually dominate short yardage situations, whether offensively or defensively. So that wouldn't surprise me. To add on to the running back thing, which one do you think will be the best receiving running back? Because I know Wayne likes to throw to his backs too.
Oh, I think Kewan Lacey right now, he's kind of, I don't want to say he's past Logan Diggs because there is no depth chart or anything like that at this point. But everybody's talking about what Kewan Lacey can do in space. And if you're catching the ball, you're usually in space. So Kewan Lacey would probably be that guy.
Okay. Anything else as far as the tight end position? I mean, it sucks that Luke got banged up. It happens. It's football. But, do you expect them to still play a lot of 12 personnel, or do you think there'll be a little less of that? What's your at least original thought? Because he'll be out for at least part of the season.
Man, if this is one of the things that has me so excited. If Caleb Odom figures this out and gets involved in the playbook and all of that, he's the type guy that takes a formation, and whether you're in 11 personnel, but it can basically be 12 personnel. You have the positional versatility in that player that can play wide receiver or tight end. So the opposing team doesn't necessarily know what you're trying to do. That could be an absolute weapon. I think 12 personnel is absolutely going to happen. I think it happened last year, and Ole Miss had success with it and got Lane's attention. I think 12 personnel is the way forward for this Ole Miss team. But the versatility with somebody like Caleb Odom, the way that Ole Miss likes to split out their tight ends, I don't think we can overstate how important that would be if he got in the playbook and got up to speed.
I agree. When we come back on this crossover, we're going to discuss Lane Kiffin, the quarterback room, and everything else on the offense here on this crossover. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor for your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. So whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the golf course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and to stay energized. So whether you're going out on the golf course just to hack it up a little bit, or a very serious round, make sure you check out 5 Hour Energy. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The great ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts to go all the way towards the end of the course and do great. If you want to go and find 5 Hour Energy, that's the number 5 Hour Energy. You can go use promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% on your order. This is only good through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscriptions, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 into 36. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Thank you for making Locked On the Portal and Locked On Ole Miss your first listens each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like and subscribe. Let's talk about the quarterback position a little bit. This is a guy that probably isn't talked about enough as an athlete in Austin Simmons, but he can move. But with the way that Austin uses his mind, I'm curious just how much he's going to throw from the pocket and how much they're going to roll the pocket and use RPO. I'm guessing that it's still to be determined. And it could be a game-to-game kind of situation as well. Austin Simmons is a very hyperactive kid in terms of his brain. He's super smart. That's a guy that could run a major Fortune 500 company one day. He's very, very unique. With that being the case, Austin Simmons still has the ability to throw the ball all over the place. Just like he could be an air raid guy, he could be an RPO guy, he could be a West Coast offense guy. I'm curious to see how they mold the offense. What do you think, Stephen? How do you think they're going to approach it this year?
You mentioned something off of the air that kind of makes sense. Now, Lane has had an infatuation with matching offensive schemes to his personnel. He's been able to do that. This year, Austin Simmons talked about how the offense was almost completely new. Now, the tempo and all of the nuts and bolts there, that's never going to change. But you mentioned something before we went on air, comparing it to Mac Jones in 2020 at Alabama. And there's some similarities there, especially with the speed at which Austin can process and get the ball out of his hand on the short routes. He can see things fairly early. You're not going to see him get caught very often holding on to the ball too long because he's just good and he can see that. So I think the Mac Jones at Alabama in 2020 is pretty similar to what you're going to see, honestly.
That wouldn't be surprising to me because they used a lot of bubble screens. Obviously, they had Devontae. That receiver room was ridiculous, but Devontae made that impossible. Nobody was going to guard him one-on-one. But they also had the ability to throw to the tight end, throw to the running backs. They mixed it up. So, yeah, they could throw to a guy and end up winning the Heisman. But when you would least expect it, the tight end would get the ball or the H-back would get the ball. They were annoying to defend. And based on pretty balanced group of receivers, I mean, I've said it many times, I'll say it again. I'll be shocked if Caden Lee doesn't at least lead this team in receptions, but I think he's got a chance to lead the league in receptions. I don't think many guys are going to cover him, and he's a slot receiver that I'm pretty sure Austin Simmons is very well aware of because he can run routes really, really well. You have him, that he may get a lot of the attention, but they've got big receivers and they got the tight ends. I don't know how you try to take something away because that's what coordinators look at. Who are we taking away today to at least mitigate our issues? I don't taking away a slot is really hard anyway because of all the guys in the box playing the run. Who do you think is the most likely to get double teamed this year? Is it Caden or is it somebody else?
I think it's probably Deshaun Stribling. Nearly 1,000 yards receiving at Oklahoma State, a quarterback challenged offense a year ago. Deshaun Stribling was the number 85 player in the Locked On Top 100 college rankings they just did. He's going to be very good, but having a slot receiver on the inside of him is probably going to keep him from being double teamed anyway. They can kind of protect each other. It's kind of like that batter being protected by somebody behind him in the lineup. I'm not 100% certain because this is the best wide receiver unit that Lane Kiffin has put together in his time at Ole Miss. And then there's been some dudes. There's not a Trey Harris on this roster, but there's a whole lot right below that is going to be really difficult to contain, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I have. I'm not saying you can't find a different way to win this battle here or there and keep going to a guy. But when you can spray it around, kind of like the old West Coast offensive philosophy, like Kawhi Lacey out of the, inside the 10, you don't throw the backs a lot. With a guy like that, you might. I'm not saying that's the easiest way to go about it. There's not a lot of space, though. RPO, the tight end situation's unique. I mean, Ole Miss is not known as tight end U by any means, but they got some pretty athletic guys, and they can use them in a myriad of ways, and they're always going to get single coverage. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for Ole Miss's offense to be a pain, just to be annoying in terms of your approach to slowing them down in the air. And then on top of it, when was the last time they were this deep? Again, it's kind of like the receiver room. I don't know if there's like a pure number one running back for the NFL that needs to be determined, but they got at least 5 guys. You're like, they're pretty good players.
Yeah.
They certainly didn't have that depth last year because all the injuries and stuff, but when was the last time they were this deep at running back? Do you even remember?
Yeah, I do not know. They had some dudes from time to time, but I don't think it's ever really been this deep. Maybe 2022, they were top heavy whenever they had Quinshawn and Zach Evans. Maybe that year, but it wasn't 5 deep even that year. It's one of those things. So Lane's ran the ball every year he's been at Ole Miss with the exception of last year. So it's more than likely than not that they're going to figure it out this year, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a big question because if you have that many guys, like how do you maximize their abilities in the running game, but also in the passing game? So that's something to watch, especially in big games like the Oklahoma game against Georgia, obviously LSU. Teams that have similar or even better talent than you got to maximize those guys off the bench. They've got to hit some big plays for you if you're going to win those games, especially like Georgia and LSU. They have so much talent. If they can do that, then they can win those games. If not, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder. When we come back, I want to switch gears, talk a little bit of defense and also a little bit of recruiting here on this crossover. All right, Stephen, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to at least give a shout out here to Suntarine Perkins. Except for him, I mean, again, if he doesn't end up first team all SEC, that means he got banged up. That's about the only way he doesn't. But first off, how do you think they'll use him the most? More off the ball or headed towards the line of scrimmage, attacking, blitzing, that kind of stuff?
I think they're going to use him going after the quarterback and the running back and trying to play in the backfield. He's a tackle for loss monster. He's a sack monster the way he's set up. But the way he starts and the way he finishes, it might be 2 completely different looks. Pete Golding has the chance to be very creative. Like you have Prince William, you have Jam Brown and William Eccles that we talked about. You have Cam Franklin, a former 5-star, and Deshaun Womack, a former 5-star at defensive line. I think if you can create the double teams that we always like to talk about, Brian, whenever you look, if you can interior force the offensive line to double team players, give single blocking on the outside, Perkins is going to be an absolute menace and a monster this year. If for some reason they can single block Jam Brown or Xavier Harris or anything like that, which I don't think they can, but if they can, yes, Suntarine Perkins will have a little bit more trouble trying to go through all the traffic. But the way it's set up, I think they're going to be pretty good on what is the front 7, even though it's a front 6. And Suntarine Perkins is ready, like you said, to be potentially SEC Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do too. Harris and some of those guys up front, which one do you think is the most likely to be the leader just for the down lineman in either tackles for loss or sacks, both, whichever one you want to go with?
Xavier Harris is where I am at right now. I call him kind of the dancing bear. He's such a big man out there, and he's so nimble. He's the one that just engulfed the Georgia running back last year on that play that everybody just immediately knows about. He was the defensive lineman who was in there. Jam Brown had an interception against LSU. He's a good player, but we don't really know at this point about what William Eccles can be. He is the wild card in this whole situation. We've seen his high school film. We saw that he was a midseason freshman All-American or something like that. What does year 2 look like for William Eccles? He would be the wild card. I'd go with Xavier Harris to start with.
I'm curious about Eccles because he has a lot of talent. He could have played on either side of the ball. Kid that was probably a little underrated. He's from one of those random high schools in Mississippi, if I remember right. Ole Miss didn't care, went after him, and the rest is kind of like a historic deal with Ole Miss. They find a lot of small school kids, but they ain't small. Like, he's a big dude. They find kids like that, and a couple of years later, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember him. And that's what happened here. I think he's got a chance to play on Sundays. It's just refining technique. Now it's the stuff you can't project. The kid's got to want it, but the natural talent, the God-given ability, he's got that.
Yeah.
The secondary, they lose a really good defender, and I don't think there's any doubt that's the biggest question mark. If Ole Miss falls short of the playoff or anything else, my first guess is they had some kind of problem in the secondary. Who's the most likely leader at corner? And same question at safety.
At cornerback, Ricky Fletcher is the name to know. Transfer from South Alabama, 6'3" cornerback. They gave him number 9 when he transferred in. You don't give away that real estate to a player if you're a coach unless you believe in what you have. And him getting that is just a sign that they believe in what he's doing. Ricky Fletcher kind of gave them the ability to move Jalen Braxton, who was a freshman All-SEC guy, to safety. We'll have to see if the transition happens and how that looks as camp progresses, but I think it has a chance to be a good fit. Ole Miss last year had John Saunders and Trey Washington, which I don't think you can overstate how important that was to that defense, having them on the very back end of that. They're trying to find somebody to be the anchor in the back of that defense and a corner that can take away half the field. If those two players perform well and do what they think they can do, they'll do just that.
Okay. Well, the safety position, you could argue, is the biggest concern. Maybe it's corner, but the secondary in general. So I think that brings it back to the original point we started talking about defensively. We have to be right about Perkins. Otherwise, that secondary in some capacity is going to get exposed. And full attention to detail here. Even think about this last year. I never thought I'd say this in my lifetime. When was the last time, minus last season, you were worried about the Vanderbilt quarterback? Like, the league is so balanced at quarterback now. Like, everybody's got somebody's at least pretty good.
Jordan Rodgers probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's been a minute. He was a pretty good player. But, like, you can't go into any week in the SEC. Arkansas, like Taylor Green, like, that's a guy, if you screw around, he'll light you up and he'll also run over you. Everybody's got somebody that can throw it. So while Ole Miss is secondary, we're not feeling super hot on it. They're going to have to win a few shootouts probably. If it's an even average play in this league, that's not necessarily bad. DJ Lagway, teams like that have a big time. If they have big days, it's going to be hard because those guys can hit you deep. That game in particular, like if he's on, I'm worried about the Ole Miss secondary. I'll grant you, but I'll still take Austin Simmons in that group, a ridiculous amount of talent on skill, running back, tight end, receiver, and some of those guys are kind of quasi multiple spots and outscoring a lot of teams. All right, to finish up today, recruiting. I don't know the dates, maybe you do, but Deuce Gerald's is going to make a decision fairly soon.
Yeah, he's on the 2nd.
August 2nd, so that's just a few days away. It's 3 days.
And so is Ant. Ant's the 2nd.
Anthony, okay. So they got 2 key players from the greater Atlanta area making a decision. One's at Collins Hill, the other one's at Grayson. And then there's also Greene County, one of my favorite guys in the class, Jace Matthews. I don't know the date, but it's August the 8th. Okay, so it's 6 days after that. We have some really important announcements. 2 things. Number one, I don't know where they're going. I've just heard rumblings. I'll talk about that in a second. But at this point, if kids have waited this long, and this is just my experience, there's a pretty good chance that even if they pick, whether it's Ole Miss or not, they're not 100% set. And these are the kind of guys that are more likely to make more than one decision. Just going to throw that out there. Like, if you waited this long it's been a hard decision because they're tired of their phone ringing. I know personally how this works because I'm one of those guys that used to call kids. I don't really do it that much anymore. I just do in-person interviews, but that's first. And secondarily, these are really, really good players. Ole Miss fans should be happy that the Rebels have picked up high school recruiting to the point they have. They're on the borderline. I don't know how much you follow it, but Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio, like it or not, it's really accurate. It's something I've talked about forever. If you're going to win a national title, you got to hit a certain threshold high school recruiting. Ole Miss is like right on the cusp of it now. 3-4 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about that.
Yeah.
We've improved.
It's like 20%.
Yeah, it was not even anywhere close. Yeah. Anyway, blue chip ratio means the number of 4- and 5-star guys you sign. Do you hit 50%? Ole Miss used to be like 20% or something like that. I mean, they weren't even in the stratosphere. And while they used the portal, it's the high school ranks. That's the difference maker for the teams that win it, especially in the trenches, which Ole Miss is way better than what they used to be. So what I've heard, Auburn's making a run at Jace. Heard Oregon's making a run at Deuce. I haven't heard anything on Ant. I don't know what you've heard, but I'm not real confident in anything because, again, they waited this long. It's probably really close with multiple schools. Like LSU, I know still thinks they've got a good shot at Deuce. Like everybody does. Like, so I wouldn't put a nickel down on where he's going because, interior pass rushers are about as rare as it gets anyway. So anything you want to add to that, Stephen?
Well, you also remember the collectives just got more fuel over the last couple of weeks. So just because all of the recruiting has gotten to one spot, there's no rule that says it can't change really quickly. I mean, that is the way that is situated. And so Deuce, I like where Ole Miss sits with Deuce. They might not get him. Steve Wiltfong of Rivals said he crystal balled him or whatever there to Oregon. I mean, we're all hearing that. We're also hearing that Auburn is making a push after their collectives push happened with Jace Matthews. I think Ole Miss is in a really good spot with Ant Davis.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if of the three right now, that is probably the most likely spot for good news for Ole Miss whenever he is announced.
Well, that would be a very nice pickup. And he's from Grayson High School, one of the better programs in the state of Georgia and the United States. So that'd be really good for Kiffin and co. Stephen, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Check out my stuff at Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Please give this video a like, subscribe, and a comment. It's absolutely free. Helps us out. But if you want to follow us on Twitter, my address is down below. And we're also available on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. So check us out there as well as Brian.
All right, brother. I appreciate it. You can find Locked On the Portal, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, any place you get your pods. We appreciate it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.